Welcome to tinkercad. I've got some tips and tricks for our game design pieces that we are doing. A lot of you have already fabricated some of your game pieces using the materials that were in your kit, exploring different textures, different sounds as well, different techniques for a multimodal game design piece. And some of you are modeling cards, like Uno cards. So I want to give you a couple tips and tricks here. So I just dragged a box in. If I click on a corner, I can change the dimensions here to 30 by 50. I can also go ahead and add a radius to just soften those edges a little bit. And then here I can either grab that square and squish it down, or I can come over here and change the thickness of the card. So that will model a card quite nicely. And if I zoom in here, you can see maybe I need to increase that radius just a hair. There we go. So let's say that we want to put number 1 on this card. So we can go over to basic shapes and go to text and numbers, pull the text in. I like a serifed font, which has a clearly defined, little dupe here and here at the top and the bottom, which is very useful. So I'm going to use that. But you can change your font if you want to. And I am going to rotate this around. Again, I can do that by just clicking and dragging, but I can also click on the angle here and change that number, and Control Z to undo. If I want to make this bigger, I can click and drag the corner, but I will distort the number that way. If I hold Shift down while I drag it, I will scale it proportionally. So that looks good, but then I can go ahead, whoops, and squish it a little bit if I want to. Let's change this to a nice strong contrasting color. And we're going to go ahead and click and capture both of these objects. I can also do that by clicking on the card, holding Shift and clicking on the number, and going up to the Align button. And we want to go center, center. They will gray out when the action has been executed. So that looks good to me. And then if I want to put another little bump on the top corner, let's go with the top right corner for consistency's sake. This is really important in game design and in general when you're developing products for folks who may be visually impaired or blind or have just other modalities of understanding information. It is important to be very consistent with where you put things. So let's think of it as a legend, a very consistent way to say this is the top right part of your card, and that's how you will learn that the number 1 looks like this or feels like this, right? So let's just make that a little bit bigger, and oops, sometimes you accidentally grab something and distort it, and you just hit Control Z. So this might still be a little bit bigger than I want, so let's make that 2 by 2, and then the height here, let's also make that 2. And so that's got a nice low relief, but if we were to 3D print this, we would be able to feel all of these features. And then I can go ahead and group that all together. And if I want to retain those colors, I can just click on multicolor, but it is still grouped. So there's a card. Another thing that I want to show you is if we're trying to design something like one of these pieces here, which was really just using stuff out of the recycling bin, it looks an awful lot like a letter. So if I go into text and numbers again, I can go to the second page here and grab an X, and I can, again, hold Shift, make that a little bit bigger. I can grab this top box and I can make it a little bit thicker, or taller rather, and I would say that that's pretty close. I would accept that as a unique game piece. So you could have a series of game pieces for Monopoly that are really just modified letters, right? Pretty cool. Make that a consistent 20. There we go. And we've got an XO. And if you wanted it a little bit rounder, you could pull out the side there just like that. Okay, so some other things that I really want to just show you because this category keeps growing and growing. Making at home now includes crayons, thumbtacks, rulers, toilet paper, which is great, all of these things, including a lot of stuff that's in your kits, like Q-tips and cardboard. And if I scroll out here, let's just kind of move them over so that we can see everything at once. Here we go. Now, if I click on this piece of cardboard, and let's say I wanted to change the scale of it, it says scaling is locked. This is because it's a 12 by 12 inch sheet of cardboard. But let's say I just want a little piece of that. Well, let me show you how you can cut it up in tinkercad. So let's go back into basic shapes and let's pull in one of these boxes. And let's grab a corner and make that nice and big and just move that over our object. And I can have another one over here. And let's grab that corner. And let's say I really just want a little square of cardboard. Now, let me move these, because look at this. I've got that O captured. So I'm just going to scoot this over like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and group those together. And effectively, I have cut my cardboard into a little piece of material. So that could be very useful for you. And this is super cool because it is modeled with the corrugation inside and everything. So again, similar, a number of you have used Q-tips or straws, but you've bent them in half or cut them in half. So go ahead and use the box feature that way. Make sure that you just select the two objects that you want. So hold Shift and click on those objects, group them together, and now we've got half of a Q-tip. Awesome, now we can move that around. Another common one that we were seeing was the binder clip. There are a lot of ways that you can model that. They haven't added it yet in the making at home segment. So you can use a roof as part of the base here. I like to always do designing with the object in front of me. So this is really useful to make sure that I've got it oriented the correct way, right? So that in this case, it's kind of this direction. But in order to get the metal parts of the binder clip, there are a couple different things you can do. I've seen a few students who used the letter U, which I thought was extremely clever. And you can manipulate the letter to make it look a certain way. But I'm going to show you the scribble tool. So in this case, I'm just going to try to use the grid lines here. Here's my bottom tab. It comes up and in, then it opens up. And this does not have to be perfect. It's just a free-form shape at this moment, but it looks pretty close. So I'm going to click Done, and we can squish that down. And now we've got something to work with that roof piece. You can click on an object. Once you've designed one side of it, no need to do things twice. So Control Copy, Control Paste. And again, use those rotation arrows. And be mindful of those rotation arrows as well, because when you click on an object, different rotation arrows become available to you depending on the angle that you have orbited around your object. But if I wanted to angle this up at 45 degrees, notice how my mouse is on the inside of this circle. If I put it, let's go do that again. If I drag my mouse to the outside of the circle, I move in individual degree increments. But inside, it snaps to 22.5 degree increments, and that can be really useful. The order that you do things does matter in a lot of cases, so you may find yourself having to undo things a number of times, and that's just part of the design process. Don't fret. that is normal for all of us. But again, if we wanted to come in here, we probably need to scale this up a bit, but you can start to see how these pieces come together. Now, this is a great example of where I really should have been using the the actual binder clip in front of me to model this, because I have the direction of this going in the wrong way. So I would want to flip that around so that it's upside down. But you're starting to see where this is going, and hopefully this was useful to give you some more tips and tricks of what you can do in Tinkercad for modeling those game design pieces.